Okay, I think we'll get started now. Good afternoon, everyone, and a quick note to view this presentation, if you haven't done so already, just enter your name at the bottom of the Join Me screen and select the Join in green. Now, thank you for joining us for SPS's Best Practices webinar. We know it's a pretty busy time of year, but hopefully this presentation will help make the hours that you spend on deal sourcing a little more productive. Now, this is going to be a focused session detailing the approaches for using SPS data by applying the full capabilities of our portal along with our newest addition, the mobile app. Now, my name is Catherine Daly, and I work here in communications at SPS, and I'm delighted to introduce the man of the hour, my colleague, Brenden Gobell.
Hey, thanks, Catherine.
All right, so before we get started, just a few quick housekeeping items. Be sure to mute your phones. And also, just so you know, by selecting F11, it'll display the presentation in full screen. And there will be a Q&A session after the main demo, although feel free to send questions throughout. Now, to submit those questions, please use the chat option in the Join Me window. And if you'd like to send an anonymous message, simply select the @ icon next to your name and change it to Brenden Gobell, and that will send it to Brenden directly, and he can answer for the group. You can also follow up with Brenden or myself after the presentation if you prefer. Now, finally, if you've noticed and are distracted by those colorful bubbles on the right-hand side of your screen, just select X at the bottom and they'll disappear. Any questions or comments before we begin? Great. Well, without further ado, here's Brenden.
Hey, thanks, Catherine. And thank you, everyone, for taking some time out today to join this webinar. So let's dive right in to the best practices, starting here on the portal, and then we will switch over to a real-time demo of the app. Just a short 30-second intermission in between. So right here, where I'd like to really spend some time is this new deal source section. And just to kind of take a step back and maybe discuss why we think this is so important, we are hearing from clients all the time how tough it is to research and stay on top of new advisors while managing all their existing relationships. In fact, our research has identified 150 such firms who never closed a deal prior to 2016. What this also means is that most of the new ones don't get a lot of attention. So say only a third are relevant for your investment criteria, that's still 50 firms you can build relationships with before your competitors do each year. So what this section does specifically is identify all the advisors who closed a deal in the most recent quarter who had not closed a deal in your entire previous subscription as a client. So there's really two ways a name can show up here. Either one, they're entirely new to M&A, or they've been around for a bit, but they're only now active in your space. Either way, you probably want to give them a look. And just by scrolling through this list, you can see all the names. If you want more details on them, you can just click it and it would bring up their profile. You can also export this full list to Excel, and you can also see the professionals that were new in this quarter that were not active in previous periods, just by switching over to this tab here. One of the interesting things that makes this section especially useful is that it is driven by whatever is selected from this dropdown. So we have the ability to create multiple targets for our clients. The most common approach is maybe a broad target, and then we create a more focused core, getting rid of, say, a deal size range or some sub-industries. But we can also create ones for, say, competitor index, anytime your peers close a deal, or maybe a tier 1 bank list, your top 20 intermediary relationships, you would want that as a second target. Or even if you're organized internally where each partner is in charge of a different vertical and each person wants to be able to run their own reports, we can do that as well. And when you change the selection from the dropdown, as I'm going to do now, you will see that everything updates from the new deal sources here at the right to the summary stats at the top, and then even this market activity chart here in the middle. And one of the ways that our clients are using this on a quarterly basis is they pull up the dashboard, they go to whichever data set is most relevant for their responsibilities, and they go straight to the missed deals right here at the top. Everything in the portal is hotkeyed, so when in doubt, just try clicking on it. And if you want to see these 250 deals, I just click the 250, and up pops a memo page. Now we have additional columns of data on these deals, and you can access those elsewhere by running a search in the portal. But this is really meant to give you a high-level overview. What are the main data points? You can export this to Excel or PDF it. And for any of these deals, if you wanted more info, you could just click their name, and it would bring up their deal page. So moving on to our next best practice, being able to run a firm search based on the type of processes that those intermediaries typically close. Now, it is not breaking news at all that competition and multiples are going up, and they have been for some time. So finding firms that run wider processes can deliver a distinct advantage for sourcing lesser-known deals at better prices. This also isn't a new concept, and almost everyone has had an opinion on which firms run wide processes versus broad auctions, but this information is subjective and incomplete. So last year, we introduced the ability to query advisors based on the process breadth they typically use, from those doing 50+ deals a year down through a boutique shop doing 3. And all 1,500+ sell-side advisors in our database can be queried in this way. So you just go to New Search under Firms, and this is that sell-side process spectrum. And to create a range, you just move the bands from either end. Let's search for limited for this example. And then down at the bottom here are all the other parameters that you can have. So say the last couple years, do a custom range here, January 2015 through the end of 2016. Let's also do the 50 to 500 deal size ranges. There's no limit to how many of these parameters that you combine or anything like that. And let's go ahead and run this. Hit search. So here are your results, 119. You'll always see it at the top right. If you want to export this full list to Excel, you just click Excel right there. And you can also customize these columns in the layout to make them as relevant to you as possible. Just drag and drop the columns. You can add or remove any up here at this drop down. And then once you have it the way you like, hit Save Layout. You get that green confirmation at the top, and you'll never have to do that again. Let's pick one of these firms to see their full firm profile. So scrolling down the list, maybe MVP Capital. So to see that, all you have to do is click their name. Brings up their firm page. And every advisor in our database had something just like this. This top section has an enormous amount of information in just 3 graphics. So the first is their breakdown by industry. And we calculate this on a trailing 2-year basis. And this is using our full database, regardless of what your subscription is. We want to tell you whether they're really sector focused or generalist. And then at the left is this relevant deal activity and coverage metric. So this uses your target parameters to say, of all the deals this firm has done over that same trailing 2-year period, what percentage were relevant. So anytime you pull up an advisor, very easily you can see, are they doing 20%, 50%, or 80% relevant deals. And just below that is the sell-side process index. So this takes all those deal level indicators and it estimates what type of process this firm typically closes relative to its peers. And this is right on limited, and that's why it came through on our search. Scroll down a little bit. There's a notes field where you and your colleagues can add details about the specific firm. You don't have to worry about anyone else seeing those because they're completely confidential at the client level. Scroll down a bit more, and we have the full professional listing of everyone at this firm who has done a deal within your subscription history. And this section will only grow as we add more data. And you can download their V cards with a click, or you could go to their page by selecting their name. Below the professionals is the deal section. All the transactions this firm has done that you have access to. Same thing where they're all in blue if you wanted to see more information on them. Or even within this table, you can sort. So say if you only want to see the buyout deals that this firm did. Just type out buy-in, type in buyout, excuse me, and it filters right away. that off. And then finally, at the very bottom, we have a simple map just showing the location of the deals that were closed. Some of our clients have a geographic concentration, and this just helps inform that. For the red tags, you can just click on them, and it'll also tell you the deal name and when it closed. To get out of these pages, always click outside in the gray space, and they go away just like that. Now, you can also save searches. Highly recommend this, and that then you just don't have to rebuild it next time. And when you save a search in the portal, it also automatically updates in the app. So let's call this the 50 to 500 limited, I believe I did 2015 through 2014. And then also flagging firms, very helpful. All you have to do is just click this flagging icon here. It's a way to basically create a short list. And when you do this, they are also updated immediately on the app as well. So let's move on to the professional section. This is really what we call our third best practice. It involves being as prepared as possible when you're going to a city, either for a conference or just general travel. We are right in the middle of conference season, and keeping your schedule productive and not just full is top of mind. So anybody going to the next ACG event, they can sift through the attendee list, but this is really a raw directory with no information on their firm's relevance to your investment criteria. It also ignores the active professionals in that city that you may want to meet who just aren't attending. So we really recommend running a professional search before travel of any kind so that you can identify and set up meetings with the people that are already closing deals in your target. So for this search, let's say you're going to Atlanta for a conference. They always have quite a few every year. All you have to do is type in the state, and then you can select it. You don't even need to do the city because you'll see that anyways within the results. Close date range, let's do that same one as before. Do 2015 through 2016. And maybe client target, yes. So you can apply all those target parameters with a single click right here. You can always do that if you don't want to go by a single transaction range or a certain vertical. And let's also do didn't see it under stage. So what this is going to do is return all the people who are located in Georgia who closed a deal in your target that you didn't see within the past 2 years. So a pretty focused search that only takes a few seconds to make. So here are the results, 102 people in Georgia. And if you really want to zero in on Atlanta, all you have to do is type in Atlanta under cities. Now we're down to 86. Let's pick someone whose profile we can check out. We'll do Amy Forrestal at Brookwood Associates. So I just click her name, and up pops her page. See the full bio that our research team is constantly updating, download her V card, maybe PDF the whole page if you just want a hard copy. You can also email her directly from the portal or from the app if you have her pulled up. Another notes fields, same function as on the firm page. And then all of her deals at the bottom so that you can review her history and make sure it's really worth your time to try and set up a meeting. You can also flag professionals. Nice way to point them out after you do your research, and then you can pull them up on the fly. And let's maybe do one other. We'll just do Chip at Raymond. So when you flag professionals, that also gets updated in the app right away. Let's save the search. We'll do 2015 through 2016, target, missed, Atlanta. Save those changes. And now for the last best practice that we're going to walk through on the portal before we transition over to the app, and that's the client deal section. So as competition increases, not news to anybody, we keep hearing more and more about alternative sourcing strategies. And one of these that has already proven itself time and again is mining your firm's deal data for broken processes. They get far less attention than those just brought to market. You've already invested the time to evaluate them, but the prohibitively time-consuming task of sifting through your pipeline to research which haven't closed still remains. The good news is that if you share your deal data with SPS, our market coverage analysis has already done all the heavy lifting. So what you do is go to client deals and then search, and then the very first thing under batch date, choose show all, and then hit search just one more time. And that's because otherwise it'll only show the most recent quarter of data, and that'll make it kind of tough to mine your data for those broken processes. So once we've done that, you see about 3,500 deals. And I do want to reiterate that this is fake data for the sake of this, this client portal, this demo account. We do not use client deal data for our database. It's actually forbidden based on our mutually facing NDA. So the only person who can ever see your log is just you when you log in through your portal. So say you want to mine your deal data for those broken processes. Perhaps you want to go through stage name and just search for the ones where you submitted an IOI. So I can do that, and then maybe let's sort from most recent to oldest. So if you want to tie out the loop on, say, Union Corrugating, that's our demo account, saw it in September, you can see that it closed in December. Or say Pivot Point. If you want to see all the details for those deals, just click on its name, and up pops its profile page. What kind of process it was, if you want to PDF this to send around internally, and then at the bottom, you can see who worked on the deal, who the investor was, the advisor. And by the way, when we say intermediary, that is exclusively sell-side advisor. It's not retained search or buy-side. And if there's a plus sign, we have at least one person at this firm who worked on this deal. And our professional data is not a directory. The only way somebody can get into your portal is if they closed a deal within your target. One last thing to point out, especially if you're going to use this for mining for broken deals, we recommend really ignoring the deals that haven't closed within the past 6 months as far as 18 goes, just because realistically speaking, they haven't really had a chance to close. But once you go back further, anytime that you see these blanks, it means that SPS was not able to confirm that deal closed, and it may be worth reaching out to see if it was a full-on broken process or maybe it just went dark. So this concludes the portal portion of this webinar. Please sit tight for just 30 seconds as I switch over to the app. Feel free to get a glass of water or maybe snag that colleague that really only wants to see the demo portion for the app. All right, so here we are on our new mobile app. First off, before we get in here, I'd really just like to thank everybody who helped contribute. Staying in sync with client feedback, it really provides that crucial guidance to our strategic initiatives. And without it, we would not be able to constantly expand and enhance the SPS offering as we have been doing so for years. So really, thank you again, especially those who helped out in the beta test. And we will be listening to your feedback and suggestions for future upgrades and additions. So please don't be shy. So for logging in, it's really straightforward, and you only need to use your password maybe the first time that you log in. After you do that, you can enable the Touch ID, which will allow you to log in just using your thumbprint. Now this is great because we've all been there where you want to be able to look something up on the fly, but you just can't find the password, and then you end up not doing it at all. So hopefully this will help you avoid that sort of situation. So when you log in, it takes you right to the dashboard, but you can always get to the menu by tapping those 3 horizontal lines at the top left. Pretty straightforward, as you can see. So let's start with the dashboard, though. So at the top, if you remember when I was talking about the different data sets, you can still swap those here on the app. All you have to do is tap the data set broad target at the top there, and that will bring up the list of all the ones available. I'm going to switch to the core 10 to 250, hit done, and then you'll notice that right away, everything updates. If I want to investigate the missed deals, I just tap the 250, and here are all those deals. If I want to check out one in particular, maybe do advanced instruments, you can even see the advisor's name right below it, Done Rush. Just tap the deal, and here's this page. See whether it was a buyout, what kind of process was moderate. If you want to see the companies involved on the deal, refer to those 3 icons at the bottom. We really structured the app to always guide you based on whatever is displaying at the bottom for the various sections. So companies, I tap that. I can see the investor at the top as an equity, the intermediary, and all the professionals at the advisor's firm that helped work on this deal. If I wanted more info on any of these, I could just click into the name, but for now, I'm going to go back to the summary. To do that, we just hit the back button at the top, and one more time. You can also access that new deal source section here on the app, that being our first best practice that we started with on the portal portion. So at the bottom, you see those new firms and the new professionals icons. If I just tap new firms, it brings up all those names. If I wanted to investigate one, I could go to, let's see, we'll do 11 T partners, based right here in New York. See their breakdown by industry, and if you scroll to the bottom, you can see those same graphics, relevant deal activity, and also sell-side process index. If you want to see all the deals they've done, use the icons at the bottom, or all the professionals, same thing. Or even check out the notes to see if your colleagues have left any details. So that does it for the dashboard for now. Let's move on to the deals. The default view when you switch to deals shows the last quarter deals. And if you wanted to, you can even flag them right here just by tapping that flag icon, or display them on a map just by switching that at the top. Now, this is a pretty general target, as you can tell, but if it was more focused, you could easily see where most of the deals were getting done. If you would like to investigate deals that you've flagged in the past, you could also go to that icon there at the bottom, or maybe you want to run a safe search. Everything updates between the portal and the app. Let's move on to the firm section. So the default view here is a little different. And that it typically shows all the firms that were active over the last 12 months. So a little different time periods, given that you're looking into the advisors and not just the most recent deals. Same thing, if you want to flag them, you can. If you want more information on any of them, you just tap their name. And if you go over to the flagged firms, you'll be able to see the 2 that I flagged just a few minutes ago. Or the safe search, you can see the one I just ran at the top. Let's move on to professionals. So here on professionals, the default view is actually a very exciting new feature. You can only use it on the app, and we think that it's going to be a real time saver for clients, especially those who are constantly traveling. So what it does, you can see that it says nearby, is it finds all the professionals that are located nearby you using your current GPS location when enabled. So if you're in Atlanta for any reason and your 2 o'clock cancels, you can just pull up the app, maybe check the filter, see if they're within 1 mile and active within the last 1 or 2 years, whatever you want to use. Hit done, and it will show you all the people who have closed a relevant deal who are located nearby you in a list form or even a map form. And when you zoom in, the bubbles break up to show you where all the different people are located. So as you can tell, we're based here in Midtown Manhattan. If I want to see those 7 people that are located by Turtle Bay, I just tap that 7 bubble, takes me straight to their names. Want to call one of these people? Say George. I pull him up. I can tap the phone icon and call him right from the app. Or maybe just send him an email, try to introduce yourself. If you want more info on him, you can check out the bio. Again, I'm just using those icons at the bottom, or maybe review all the deals he's done before you reach out. So if you go back to the main professional section here, you'll see those same icons at the bottom as the firms and even the deals. So if I want to see all the professionals that I've already flagged, Amy and Chip, these are the two that I did early in the webinar, so it updates right away. Or I want to rerun those saved searches that I did in preparation for a conference, and now I want to look up those results really quick. I go to Save Search, and you can see the one I did for Atlanta right there at the top. So now for the last section, client deals. Just going to give the mirror a second here to catch up. So you're not going to be able to do a full broken deal analysis here within the app, like we were showing on the portal. But if you want to look up and see, hey, did that deal ever actually close? You can still do that, which could be very helpful when you're constantly traveling. So if you remember that deal we looked up, pivot point, say you didn't know whether or not that closed. Type in pivot, hit search, and there it is. If they have closed, you'll see that they won't be shaded, and it actually gives you the close date. And just like that. So I'm going to conclude by heading back to the dashboard here and open this up for questions. So I've already received a couple, and I'm just going to jump right into those. Feel free to send any that you're thinking of right now, or we can always follow up after the webinar. So the first one is, how do you quantify a limited process versus a broad auction? So really good question. We have been receiving on a confidential basis deal logs for many years now, well over 150. And it's actually a client idea to figure out, if we have all this information, why can't we just say how many times a closed deal was seen? So our research team still does all the digging to actually add a deal to our database. But once it's in there, we can track how many times it was seen, completely anonymous, and we aggregate that information to then estimate how many deals were closed in that quarter and how many times they were all seen. So we're basically using our client base anonymously as a proportional proxy for the broader market. And it's all dynamic, so as our clients increase and as the number of deals goes up, all the breakpoints adapt. So it's not entirely exact, but it's a really strong, robust estimate of limited, moderate, and broad. Okay, next question. Is it possible to break down the deal size ranges even smaller? So we get this question a lot. We would love to be able to break them down even more, and it's something that we've been looking at for some time. The simple reality is that if we were to try to do that, it would really become more art than science. One of the main benefits with how we do the enterprise value ranges is that all of our deals are always assigned to a range. So most of the time in a lot of systems, if you run a search using financials, you're going to lose about 80% of the deals just because nothing's disclosed. So by putting everything in a bucket, nothing falls through the cracks. But the ways that we find out that information, we either don't know the exact financials behind it, or we receive them on a confidential basis. So unfortunately, we really can't break down the sizes anymore. Next question. Ooh, CRM integration. What are the options? Does it vary from, say, a Salesforce to others like DealCloud? Very good question, and it's especially timely. So we have the ability to integrate with a number of CRMs. It really comes down to what degree or what extent the client wants. Do you just want to pull our data? Do you also want to push your own deal data? But we're happy to work with you at no charge whatsoever, and we have our IT team that can handle our side. The one thing that we do need from you is just somebody who's pretty technically savvy on your end to help join everything up. but we are able to do that for, say, Salesforce, Deal Cloud, and even a couple of the other ones. Well, hey, great. Thank you all so very much for your time. I really do appreciate it. I hope that this was informative and helpful. Please feel free to follow up with me after if you have any other questions. And I will be sending a follow-up to everyone later this week with a review of today's content. It'll also include a direct link to our app on the iOS App Store, just in case you haven't downloaded it yet, and also a link to our ongoing survey for current clients only. The feedback that we receive through this and other avenues, it really helps to constantly push the product forward. So thank you again, everyone, for your time today, your feedback in the past, and all the feedback that we hope to receive in the future. Thanks again, and hope you all have a great week.